The moment Lucas Bennett's trembling fingers failed to tie his own necktie, he never imagined the CEO would reach up and fix it herself, or that her touch would be the first kindness he'd felt since burying his wife. But when Olivia Sterling's hand steadied the knot and her eyes met his, something impossible sparked in that glass-walled boardroom. A single father drowning in debt. A powerful CEO who'd forgotten what warmth felt like. One interview that could save everything or destroy it all. If you're ready to witness a story where vulnerability becomes strength and two broken souls refuse to stay shattered, stay with me until the very end. Hit that like button and comment your city below so I can see how far this journey reaches. Let's begin. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime that sounded like judgment. Lucas Bennett stepped into the 42nd floor of Meridian Tech's headquarters and immediately felt like an imposter. The lobby stretched before him in endless glass and polished chrome, a cathedral built to worship success. Everything here whispered money, confidence, belonging. Everything Lucas wasn't. His reflection caught in the mirror-polished wall, and he almost didn't recognize himself. The suit was Derek's, his neighbor from 4C who'd insisted Lucas borrow it for the interview. "Almost fits," Derek had said with an encouraging slap on the shoulder. But standing here now, Lucas could see the sleeves were half an inch too long. The shoulders pulled slightly when he moved. The fabric felt foreign against his skin, like wearing someone else's life. He tugged at the tie for the third time in as many minutes. The knot refused to cooperate. His fingers, normally steady enough to change Ethan's bandages or fix broken toys, trembled like leaves in a storm. 7 years of single fatherhood had taught him to handle screaming tantrums, midnight fevers, and grocery shopping on $17. But this? Walking into a boardroom where his entire future would be decided by people who'd never had to choose between electricity and groceries? This was different. "Mr. Bennett?" A young woman with an iPad and a smile that looked practiced approached him. "Ms. Sterling is ready for you. Right this way, please." Ms. Sterling. Olivia Sterling. The name carried weight in every tech publication Lucas had frantically studied over the past week. At 39, she'd taken over Meridian Tech when it was hemorrhaging money and talent. Within 3 years, she'd restructured the entire company, pivoted their product line, and turned a dying firm into an industry leader. Forbes called her ruthlessly brilliant. TechCrunch wrote that she didn't suffer fools or failures. Lucas was terrified he qualified as both. They walked down a corridor where art that probably cost more than his car hung on walls the color of winter clouds. Other employees passed by, confident, well-dressed, speaking in acronyms Lucas only half understood. They belonged here. They moved through the space like fish in water. Lucas felt like he was drowning. "Just through here," the assistant said, gesturing toward frosted glass doors. Lucas's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out quickly, a reflex born from years of single parenthood where every notification could be an emergency. Ethan's school, field trip permission slip needed by Friday. $25 fee. $25. For most people in this building, that was lunch. For Lucas, it was a calculation. It meant skipping his own lunches for a week. It meant Ethan's joy at seeing the science museum versus the electricity bill that was already overdue. He silenced the phone and slipped it back into his pocket. One crisis at a time. The frosted doors opened, and Lucas forgot how to breathe. The boardroom was a masterpiece of intimidation. One wall was entirely glass, overlooking the city skyline, a view that turned buildings into toys and made the world feel conquerable. The opposite wall held screens displaying stock tickers, company metrics, numbers that moved with the pulse of empire. But Lucas barely saw any of it, because Olivia Sterling herself stood from behind the massive conference table and walked directly toward him. She was smaller than he'd expected from her photographs. Maybe 5'6" in heels that clicked precisely against the hardwood floor. Her dark hair was pulled back in a style that was both severe and elegant, not a strand out of place. She wore a charcoal suit tailored so perfectly it looked like armor. Everything about her screamed control, except her eyes. They were hazel, shifting between green and gold depending on the light, and they studied Lucas with an intensity that made his skin warm. Not cruel, not dismissive, just present, fully, completely present in a way that made him feel simultaneously seen and exposed. Mr. Bennett, she said, extending her hand. Thank you for coming. Her handshake was firm, professional, brief, but as she pulled back, her gaze dropped to his collar, to the catastrophe of his necktie. Lucas felt heat crawl up his neck. Of course. Of course his one chance to make a good impression would be sabotaged by a strip of silk he couldn't manage to control. His fingers had started to reach up, to make some desperate attempt to fix it, when Olivia Sterling did something completely unexpected. She stepped closer. May I? She asked quietly. Lucas's brain short-circuited. What? Your tie, she said simply. May I fix it? He should have said no, should have laughed it off, made a joke about being out of practice with formal wear. Should have maintained some shred of dignity. Instead, he nodded. Olivia Sterling, CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company, the woman who'd once made a VP cry during an earnings call, reached up and adjusted Lucas Bennett's necktie with hands that were unexpectedly gentle. She was close enough that he could smell her perfume, something subtle and expensive that reminded him of winter gardens. Close enough that he could see the faint lines at the corners of her eyes, the small scar near her left eyebrow, the precise way she'd applied makeup to look natural while being perfect. Close enough that when she breathed, he felt it. Her fingers worked the silk with practiced ease, loosening the failed knot and starting over. My father, she said quietly, her eyes focused on her work, insisted I learn to tie a Windsor knot properly. Said you could tell everything about a person by how they wore their tie. Lucas found his voice, though it came out rougher than intended. What does mine say? The corner of her mouth lifted, barely a smile, but there. That you're nervous, that this matters to you, that you probably dressed in a hurry while worrying about something more important than this interview. His breath caught. She noticed. Her eyes lifted from the tie to meet his, and for a moment, just a heartbeat, the CEO mask slipped. There was something almost curious in her expression, something searching. There, she said, smoothing the fabric against his chest once before stepping back. Much better. Professional distance restored. The moment, if it had been a moment, passed. But Lucas's heart was hammering like he'd just run a marathon. When was the last time someone had touched him like that? Kindly, without needing anything, without it being about Ethan's scraped knee or a hurried handshake or a sympathetic pat from someone who didn't know what else to do with a widower. 3 years. It had been 3 years since Sarah's funeral, 3 years since another adult had touched him with anything resembling gentleness. And it happened in a job interview, from a woman who could decide his entire future with a single word. Please, Olivia gestured toward the conference table. Sit. Lucas sat. The chair was leather and probably cost more than his rent. Olivia took the seat across from him, not at the head of the table where power usually resided, but directly opposite. Equal height, equal distance. She opened a folder that Lucas recognized as his application materials. His inadequate resume stared back at him. I've reviewed your background, Olivia began, her voice shifting into business mode. You have a degree in business administration from State, 3 years with Harmon Associates before... She paused, her eyes scanning the page. Before a gap. Then freelance consulting for the past several years. The gap. There it was, the black hole in his work history that every interviewer noticed, the unspoken question that hung in the air like smoke. Lucas had prepared for this, practiced his answer in the bathroom mirror while Ethan brushed his teeth, rehearsed it during his bus ride downtown. He knew exactly what to say. But sitting here with Olivia Sterling's intelligent eyes on him, the prepared speech died in his throat. My wife died, he said instead. Simply. Honestly. Car accident. I had a 7-month-old son. I took time off to figure out how to be a single parent. The words fell into the space between them like stones into water. Olivia's expression didn't change. She didn't offer condolences or sympathy. She simply nodded once, acknowledging the information as fact rather than tragedy. And the freelance work? She asked. Whatever I could do from home, Lucas said. Small business consulting, market research, data analysis. Nothing glamorous, nothing that would look impressive on paper, but it kept us fed. Kept you fed, Olivia repeated. She leaned back slightly, studying him. Why do you want this position, Mr. Bennett? Another question he'd prepared for. Another answer that suddenly felt hollow. Because I need more than survival, he said. The truth kept spilling out before he could stop it. Because my son deserves better than a father who's constantly stressed about money. Because I'm good at what I do, better than my resume shows, and I need someone to give me a chance to prove it. Silence. Olivia Sterling tapped one finger against the folder. A small gesture, but Lucas couldn't read it. Was she impressed? Annoyed? Bored? Tell me about your son, she said. Lucas blinked. I'm sorry? Your son. Ethan, correct? I saw the reference in your cover letter. Tell me about him. This wasn't a standard interview question. This wasn't about competencies or cultural fit or salary expectations. This was personal. Lucas hesitated, then pulled out his phone. His lock screen showed Ethan from 2 weeks ago, missing both front teeth, grinning like he'd conquered the world, holding up a drawing of what was supposed to be a dinosaur, but looked more like a potato with legs. He turned the phone toward Olivia. He's 7, Lucas said, and despite everything, despite the terror and the inadequacy and the borrowed suit, his voice softened with unmistakable love. Obsessed with space. Wants to be an astronaut. Builds these elaborate rocket ships out of cardboard boxes and duct tape. Last month he tried to convince me that eating vegetables would help him withstand 0 gravity. The smallest smile touched Olivia's lips. Did it work? He ate an entire plate of broccoli, Lucas said. First time in his life. I didn't have the heart to tell him NASA probably doesn't recruit based on vegetable consumption. Smart. He is, Lucas said quietly. He put the phone away. He's the reason I'm here. The reason I can't fail. Olivia studied him for a long moment. Then she closed the folder and folded her hands on top of it. I'm going to be honest with you, Mr. Bennett. Your resume has gaps that would concern most hiring managers. Your recent work history doesn't show the kind of aggressive career progression we typically look for. On paper, you're not our strongest candidate. Lucas's stomach dropped. Here it came. The polite rejection, the "we'll keep your resume on file," that meant never. However, Olivia continued, on paper doesn't tell the whole story, does it? Hope flickered. Dangerous. Fragile. You've spent the last several years learning to manage crisis, adapt to impossible circumstances, and succeed despite having every reason to fail. You've taught yourself new skills while working irregular hours. You've maintained professional standards while handling responsibilities that would break most people. She leaned forward slightly. Those aren't skills you learn in an MBA program, Mr. Bennett. Those are skills you earn, and they're exactly what this position requires. Lucas couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, couldn't do anything but stare at this woman who'd just seen him, actually seen him, in a way no one else had in years. I have 3 more candidates to interview this week, Olivia said. You'll hear from us by Friday. It was dismissal, professional, clean. But as Lucas stood to leave, as he shook her hand one final time, he caught something in her expression, something that looked almost like recognition, like she understood what it meant to fight alone. Thank you, he managed, for your time, and for... He gestured vaguely at his tie. Olivia's smile was brief but genuine. Good luck, Mr. Bennett. The elevator ride down felt different than the ride up. Lucas's reflection in the polished doors showed the same borrowed suit, the same 2 long sleeves, but the tie sat perfectly. And something in his expression had shifted. He'd told the truth. All of it. No performance, no practiced answers. And she'd listened. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Ethan's after-school program. Reminder. Pick up by 6 p.m. Late fees apply after 6:15. Lucas checked his watch. 4:47. He could make it if he caught the next bus. No time for dinner, but that was fine. Ethan had leftover mac and cheese at home. The lobby doors opened onto the street, and the autumn air hit Lucas like a splash of cold water. Rush hour traffic crawled past. Homeless man on the corner shook a cup. The real world, his world, rushed back in. But for the first time in years, Lucas didn't feel like he was drowning in it. He pulled out his phone and sent a quick text to Derek. Lucas. Interview done. Ty survived. We'll return suit tomorrow. Thank you. Derek. How'd it go? Lucas. Don't know yet, but maybe good? She fixed my tie. Derek. The CEO fixed your tie? Derek. Dude, that's not normal. Derek. That's either really good or really weird. Lucas smiled despite himself. He didn't know which it was either. The bus pulled up, and Lucas climbed aboard, swiping his card. The seats were mostly full, other people heading home from their jobs, their normal lives, their worlds that didn't hinge on a single interview. He found a spot near the back and sat, watching the city slide past the scratched windows. His phone buzzed one more time. An email notification, probably spam or another bill he couldn't pay yet, but he checked anyway. From olivia.sterling@meridiantech.com. Subject: Follow-up. Lucas's heart stopped. He clicked it open with trembling fingers. Mr. Bennett, after further consideration, I've decided to accelerate our hiring timeline. I'd like you to come back tomorrow at 2 p.m. for a second interview with our senior leadership team. Please confirm your availability. Additionally, I noticed the field trip notification on your phone during our meeting. Ethan should go to the Science Museum. Consider it a signing bonus, contingent on tomorrow's interview. Attached is a direct deposit confirmation for $25. Regards, Olivia Sterling, CEO, Meridian Tech. Lucas read it 3 times, then a 4th. She'd seen the notification, remembered Ethan's name, sent $25 for a field trip, for his son. The woman who didn't suffer fools or failures had just paid for a 7-year-old's museum visit. Lucas's eyes burned. He blinked hard, refusing to cry on a public bus surrounded by strangers. But something cracked open in his chest, something that had been sealed shut since Sarah's funeral. Hope. Real, terrifying, impossible hope. He typed a response with shaking hands. Mrs. Sterling, I'll be there at 2 p.m. Thank you for the opportunity and for your generosity toward Ethan. I won't let you down. Lucas Bennett. He hit send before he could second-guess the informality, before he could overthink the vulnerability. The bus rattled over a pothole, and Lucas gripped his phone like a lifeline. Tomorrow, another chance, another interview. But this time walking in, he wouldn't be a desperate stranger begging for scraps. He'd be someone Olivia Sterling had chosen to believe in. Ethan ambushed him the moment Lucas walked through the apartment door. Dad! 70 pounds of 7-year-old enthusiasm hit Lucas at knee height, nearly knocking him over. He caught Ethan automatically, lifting him up despite the protests from his lower back. Hey buddy, good day? I built a Mars rover in Lego, Ethan announced proudly. Miss Patricia said it was remarkably detailed, which I think means really good. Can we watch the space documentary tonight? The one about the Mars landing, please? Lucas set him down gently. Their apartment was small, a 1-bedroom where Ethan had the actual bedroom and Lucas slept on a pull-out couch that never quite folded right. But it was clean, safe, home. We can watch 1 episode, Lucas said, after homework and dinner. Yes! Ethan pumped his fist, then paused. How was your meeting thing? Interview? Lucas corrected. And it went, well, I think. Are you going to get the job? Honesty. Lucas had promised himself he'd always be honest with Ethan, even when the truth was hard. I don't know yet, buddy, but I have another interview tomorrow. Another one? That means they like you, right? Out of the mouths of babes. I hope so, Lucas said. He knelt down to Ethan's eye level. Hey, you know that field trip to the Science Museum? Ethan's face fell slightly. It's okay. I know we can't. I understand if the money's tight. Tommy said his dad can't afford it either, so maybe we can just... You're going, Lucas interrupted. Ethan blinked. What? You're going to the museum. The permission slip is getting signed tonight, and the fee is already paid. Really? 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 Really, really? Ethan launched himself at Lucas again, this time wrapping skinny arms around his neck in a hug that squeezed the air from Lucas's lungs. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm going to learn so much about space, and I'll tell you everything, and maybe they have stuff about Mars rovers and... Lucas held his son tight, breathing in the smell of elementary school, pencil shavings and playground dirt and childhood innocence. This was why he'd walked into that boardroom, why he'd worn a borrowed suit and let a stranger fix his tie, and told the truth even when lying would have been safer. For moments like this. For Ethan's joy. For a future that didn't taste like survival. "Go wash your hands," Lucas said when he finally released him. "Mac and cheese for dinner." "Again?" "It's all we've got until grocery day." Ethan shrugged with the easy acceptance of a kid who didn't yet understand what it meant when mac and cheese appeared 4 nights in a row. "Okay, can I have the dinosaur-shaped ones?" "Those are the dinosaur-shaped ones?" "Awesome!" As Ethan thundered off to the bathroom, Lucas allowed himself one moment of stillness. He stood in their tiny kitchen with its chipped countertops, and the refrigerator that hummed too loud, and the window that overlooked the alley behind their building. Not much, but theirs. His phone buzzed. A text from Derek. "Derek. So, you gonna tell me what happened or leave me in suspense?" Derek. "Did you get the job?" Derek. "Also, Emily wants to know if you and Ethan want to come over for dinner Sunday. She's making that chicken thing you liked." Lucas smiled and typed back. Lucas. "Second interview tomorrow. Might actually have a shot." Lucas. "And tell Emily yes, please. Ethan will bring his Mars rover." Derek. "Dude, seriously, this is huge." Derek. "Don't screw it up." Lucas. "Thanks for the vote of confidence." Derek. "You know what I mean. You got this." Maybe he did. For the first time in years, Lucas Bennett let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, the universe was finally done kicking him while he was down. That night, after Ethan fell asleep clutching a plastic astronaut, Lucas sat on his pulled-out couch and stared at his laptop screen. He should sleep. Tomorrow was important. He needed to be sharp. But sleep wouldn't come. Instead, he opened a new browser tab and typed, "Olivia Sterling, Meridian Tech." Articles filled the screen, Forbes profiles, TechCrunch interviews, conference keynotes, a Harvard Business Review case study on her turnaround strategy. Lucas read them all. Born to old money but rejected the trust fund path. MBA from Wharton. Started in venture capital before moving to operations. Took over Meridian Tech at 36 when the board was desperate enough to gamble on her vision. 3 years later, she'd proved them right. But there was something else. Something beneath the professional achievements. No mention of family, no wedding ring in any photos, no work-life balance platitudes in her interviews. Just work, achievement, success, and loneliness buried under competence. Lucas recognized it because he wore his own version of the same mask. His phone buzzed with one final notification before he closed the laptop. Calendar reminder. Second interview, Meridian Tech, 2 p.m. Tomorrow. Lucas set 3 alarms. Then he lay back on the uncomfortable couch, staring at the ceiling with its water stain that looked like Africa if you squinted. 24 hours from now, he'd know. Either he'd have a future, or he'd be back to freelancing at midnight while his son slept. Either Olivia Sterling would take a chance on him, or she'd realize that fixing his tie had been an aberration, a momentary kindness extended to someone who didn't belong in her world. Lucas closed his eyes. And for the first time in 3 years, he let himself imagine a different life. A life where he didn't have to choose between electricity and field trips. A life where he belonged in rooms with glass walls and city views. A life where a woman with hazel eyes and gentle hands saw him as something more than a struggling single dad. It was dangerous to hope, but lying there in the dark, Lucas hoped anyway. The morning arrived with the kind of anxiety that lives in your chest like a second heartbeat. Lucas woke at 5:47 a.m., 13 minutes before his first alarm. Ethan was still asleep, one arm flung over the side of his bed, the plastic astronaut abandoned on the floor. The apartment held that strange pre-dawn silence where the world feels paused, waiting. Lucas made coffee with hands that were steadier than yesterday, but not by much. He stood at the kitchen window watching the sky lighten from black to gray to pale blue, sipping from a chipped mug that said "World's Best Dad," a Father's Day gift from Ethan 2 years ago, painted at school with crooked letters. The second interview was in 8 hours. He'd researched Meridian Tech's senior leadership team until 2 a.m., memorized their backgrounds, their projects, their public statements. He knew that Richard Chen, the CFO, had a reputation for asking impossible financial questions, that Maria Vasquez, VP of Operations, valued efficiency above everything. that James Harding, chief strategy officer, had worked with Olivia for 6 years and was known as her most trusted advisor. Lucas needed to impress all of them, not just survive the interview, impress them. His phone buzzed, a text from Derek. Derek, you awake? Course you are. Emily made extra coffee. Come grab some before you drop Ethan at school. Pep talk included. Lucas smiled despite his nerves. Derek and Emily lived 2 doors down, had become the closest thing to family Lucas had in this city. Derek worked construction, Emily taught kindergarten, and together they'd adopted Lucas and Ethan as honorary relatives who needed looking after. Lucas, be there in 20. Dad? Ethan's sleepy voice called from the bedroom. Is it school day? It's school day, buddy. Come on, let's get moving. Getting a 7-year-old ready for school was its own kind of chaos. Brushing teeth became a negotiation. Finding matching socks required archaeological excavation of the dresser. Breakfast was frozen waffles that Ethan insisted on drowning in syrup, while Lucas packed lunch and signed the field trip permission slip. You're wearing the fancy clothes again, Ethan observed through a mouthful of waffle. Another interview? Yeah, the important one. Are you nervous? Lucas knelt beside Ethan's chair, meeting his son's eyes, Sarah's eyes, that particular shade of brown that looked gold in sunlight. A little bit. Is that okay? Ms. Patricia says being nervous means you care about something. Ethan reached out with a syrup-sticky hand and patted Lucas's cheek. You got this, Dad. You're like super smart and stuff. Lucas's throat tightened. He caught Ethan's hand and kissed it quickly. Thanks, astronaut. Now, finish eating before you're late. Derek and Emily's apartment smelled like fresh coffee and cinnamon rolls. Emily answered the door in pajamas, her blonde hair in a messy bun, and immediately pulled Lucas into a hug. You look terrified, she announced. Good morning to you, too. I made the good coffee, Derek called from the kitchen. The expensive stuff Emily hides from me. I hide it because you drink it like water, Emily shot back. She studied Lucas's face with the practiced eye of someone who worked with children and could spot distress at 50 paces. Okay, deep breath. You're going to walk in there and show them exactly why Olivia Sterling called you back, right? Right, Lucas echoed, not entirely convinced. Derek emerged with a travel mug. Drink this, and listen. I've been doing construction for 15 years. You know what I've learned? The people at the top aren't smarter than everyone else. They're just better at pretending they belong. So pretend. That's actually terrible advice, Emily said. That's actually great advice, Derek countered. Fake it till you make it. Classic strategy. Ethan, who'd been investigating Emily's bookshelf, looked up. Are we talking about Dad's interview? He doesn't need to fake it. He knows lots of stuff. Emily grinned. See? Listen to the 7-year-old. Lucas accepted the coffee gratefully. The warmth of it, and of this moment, these people who cared, settled something in his chest. Thank you, both of you, for everything. Don't get sappy, Derek warned. You'll mess up your fancy tie. Speaking of which, Emily said, let me see. Lucas had practiced this morning, watched 3 YouTube videos. The Windsor knot sat properly against his collar, not perfect like when Olivia had fixed it, but respectable. Emily adjusted it slightly anyway. There. Now you look like you belong in a boardroom. Do I, though? Yes, Emily said firmly. And more importantly, you're about to prove it. The school drop-off routine was familiar comfort. Lucas walked Ethan to the gates where other parents clustered in groups. Some in workout clothes heading to yoga, some in business suits checking phones, some looking as exhausted as Lucas usually felt. Love you, buddy, Lucas said, hugging Ethan tight. Have a good day. Learn things. Love you too. Ethan pulled back, his expression suddenly serious. Dad? When you get the job, because you're totally going to get it, can we maybe get pizza? Like the good pizza with the stuffed crust? The confidence in when you get the job hit Lucas harder than any doubt. Yeah, he managed. Yeah, we can get the good pizza. Awesome. Ethan's grin could have powered the city. He ran off to join his friends, backpack bouncing, already shouting about his upcoming field trip. Lucas stood there for a moment, watching his son disappear into the school building. 7 years old. still believed his dad could do anything, still trusted that the world would work out. Lucas couldn't afford to prove him wrong. The bus ride downtown felt longer today. Lucas sat clutching Derek's travel mug, watching the city transform from residential neighborhoods to commercial districts to the towering glass monuments of the financial center. With each block, the buildings grew taller, and his breathing grew shallower. By the time he reached Meridian Tech, his carefully maintained calm had frayed at the edges. The lobby receptionist recognized him. "Mr. Bennett, Miss Sterling's assistant will be right down." Lucas nodded, not trusting his voice. He'd arrived 30 minutes early, partly from nerves, partly because being late would have ended everything before it started. The same young woman from yesterday appeared. "Mr. Bennett, welcome back. The senior leadership team is gathering in conference room B. Can I get you water? Coffee?" "Water would be great, thank you." She led him down a different corridor this time, away from Olivia's office, toward a section of the building that hummed with quiet intensity. Through glass walls, Lucas could see teams working, screens filled with code and data, the controlled chaos of innovation. This could be his world, if he didn't mess it up. Conference room B was smaller than the boardroom from yesterday, but somehow more intimidating. 4 people sat around the table, each with tablets and folders, each radiating the kind of competence that came from years at the top. And at the head of the table, Olivia Sterling. She looked different today. Still impeccably dressed, navy suit, cream blouse, but something in her expression was warmer. When she saw Lucas, she stood. "Mr. Bennett, thank you for coming on short notice." "Thank you for the opportunity," Lucas managed. "Let me introduce you to our team." Olivia gestured around the table. "Richard Chen, CFO, Maria Vasquez, VP of Operations, James Harding, Chief Strategy Officer, and you've met me." Handshakes all around. Richard had a grip like a vice. Maria's smile was polite but assessing. James studied Lucas with the kind of attention that felt like an X-ray. "Please, sit," Olivia said. Lucas sat. The water glass in front of him might as well have been a lifeline. "We've reviewed your background," James began without preamble. His voice was smooth, controlled, the kind that never revealed more than intended. "Olivia spoke highly of your initial interview. We'd like to understand more about your approach to crisis management." Crisis management. Lucas almost laughed. His entire life was crisis management. "Could you be more specific?" he asked, buying time. "Hypothetical scenario," Richard cut in. His accent carried traces of California, his manner pure Wall Street. "You're managing a product launch. 2 weeks before release, your lead developer quits and takes half the team with her. Your timeline is immovable. Your budget is fixed. What do you do?" The question hung in the air like a test he was destined to fail. Lucas took a breath, thought about frozen waffles and field trip fees and getting Ethan to school on time when the car broke down and the bus was late and nothing worked except sheer determination. "First," he said slowly, "I assess what can't change versus what can. The timeline is fixed, that's your reality. So you work backward from launch date and identify critical path items. Which features are absolutely necessary for minimum viable product? What can be delayed to version 1.1? Maria leaned forward slightly, interested. "Second," Lucas continued, gaining confidence, "you redistribute work based on who stayed, not who left. The people still on your team chose to stay. That loyalty matters. You lean into it. You're honest about the situation. You ask what they need to succeed. And if they say they need more people," James challenged, "then you find them. Contractors, freelancers, internal transfers, whatever it takes. But you don't lie about the difficulty. You acknowledge it's going to be brutal, and you make sure everyone knows their effort is valued. Recognition isn't free." "That sounds expensive," Richard noted. "It's more expensive to fail," Lucas countered. "A delayed launch damages reputation. A rushed launch with critical bugs damages it worse. You spend money on the team now, or you spend it on damage control later." Silence. Lucas's heart hammered. Had he overstepped? Been too aggressive? Then Olivia spoke. "Tell us about a time you've actually had to do something like this. Real situation. Real consequences." Lucas met her eyes. She was giving him an opening. He could feel it. 2 years ago, he said, I was consulting for a small retail business. They'd hired me to optimize their inventory system. 3 weeks into the project, their accountant embezzled $30,000 and disappeared. Maria whistled softly. What did you do? They couldn't pay me, Lucas said bluntly. But if I walked away, they'd fold. The owner was a single mom with 2 kids depending on that store. So I stayed, worked for equity instead of cash, helped her file police reports, restructure her books, renegotiate with suppliers who were threatening to cut her off. Did the business survive? James asked. It did. She's still operating, still profitable. I sold my equity back to her last year for less than I was owed, but she needed the capital more than I needed the vindication. That was poor financial planning on your part, Richard observed. It was, Lucas agreed, but it was the right thing to do. And she refers me clients now. Sometimes being right is worth more than being profitable. Richard's expression shifted. Not quite approval, but something close to respect. One more question, Olivia said. Her voice had gone quieter, more personal. Why Meridian Tech specifically? You could apply anywhere. Why here? Lucas could have given the polished answer, talked about company culture or growth trajectory or industry leadership. Instead, he told the truth. Because someone here already believed I was worth investing in. He didn't look away from Olivia's gaze. Because yesterday, when I sat in that boardroom barely holding it together, I wasn't treated like a risk. I was treated like a person. And I want to work somewhere that understands the difference. The silence that followed felt different than before. Heavier, more weighted with possibility. James glanced at Olivia. Something passed between them, a communication too subtle for Lucas to read. Thank you, Mr. Bennett, Olivia said finally. We'll be in touch by end of day. End of day, not end of week. Lucas stood on shaking legs. More handshakes. Professional smiles. The same assistant appearing to escort him out. But as he reached the door, Olivia's voice stopped him. Mr. Bennett? He turned. She was standing now, backlit by the window. And for just a moment, she looked less like a CEO and more like a woman making a decision that mattered. Your son's field trip is tomorrow, correct? Yes, Lucas said, confused. I hope he enjoys it. It was such a small thing, a throwaway comment, but the way she said it, the genuine warmth beneath the professional veneer, hit Lucas like a physical touch. Thank you, he managed. I'm sure he will. The elevator doors closed, and Lucas finally allowed himself to breathe. He'd done it, actually done it, held his own against some of the sharpest minds in the industry, and walked out with dignity intact. Whether it was enough remained to be seen. His phone buzzed as he stepped into the lobby. Derek? Derek? Derek. Don't leave me hanging. Derek, how'd it go? Lucas typed quickly as he pushed through the revolving doors into afternoon sunlight. Lucas. They said end of day. So, waiting. Derek. That's good though, right? Fast response. Lucas. Or fast rejection. Derek. You're such a pessimist. Derek. Come back to the apartment. Emily made lunch. You need to eat. Lucas checked his watch. 3:42 p.m. Ethan wouldn't be done with school until 6 o'clock. Sitting alone in the apartment obsessing over every word he'd said seemed like a recipe for insanity. Lucas. On my way. Emily had made soup, real soup, not from a can, the kind with vegetables and herbs and care baked into every spoonful. Lucas sat at their kitchen table and tried to eat while Derek peppered him with questions. Did they grill you? Yes. Did you grill them back? Sort of. Did the CEO lady fix your tie again? Lucas nearly choked on his soup. No, that was a one-time thing. Emily shot Derek a look. Leave him alone. He's stressed enough. She turned to Lucas. How did you feel, though? Honestly? Lucas considered this. Like I belonged. For the first time in years, I felt like I actually belonged in that room. Then you did well, Emily said simply. Trust that feeling. His phone sat on the table between them, silent, taunting. 4:17 p.m. Stop staring at it, Derek advised. Watched pot never boils. That's not how job offers work. Isn't it, though? Lucas's phone buzzed. All 3 of them jumped. It was an email. From Meridian Tech. Lucas's hands shook so badly he nearly dropped the phone. Emily grabbed his arm. Breathe. Whatever it says, just breathe. He opened it. From hr@meridiantech.com. Subject: Position offer. Strategic Operations Manager. Lucas stopped reading, stopped breathing. The words blurred together. What does it say? Derek demanded. Lucas. What does it say? Lucas's voice cracked. He tried again. They offered me the job. Emily screamed, actually screamed, loud enough that Derek flinched. They offered you the job! She yanked Lucas out of his chair and into a hug that squeezed the air from his lungs. Derek joined in, creating a sandwich of celebration that nearly toppled them all. I can't believe it, Lucas whispered. I actually can't believe it. Believe it, Emily said fiercely. You earned this. You did this. Lucas pulled back, hands still shaking, and read the email properly. Dear Mr. Bennett, we are pleased to offer you the position of Strategic Operations Manager at Meridian Tech. Your start date would be Monday, October 16th, with a starting salary of $127,000 annually, plus benefits package detailed in the attached document. Please review the attached offer letter and return your signed acceptance by Friday, October 6th. Welcome to the team. We look forward to working with you. $127,000. Lucas read the number 3 times to make sure he hadn't hallucinated zeros. Last year, he'd earned $31,000 from freelancing. Last year, he'd sold plasma twice to make rent. Last year, he'd stood in a grocery store putting items back because his card was declined. $127,000. How much? Derek asked, reading Lucas's expression. Lucas showed him the screen. Derek's eyes went wide. Holy language, Emily warned automatically, then looked at the number herself. Oh my gosh, Lucas, that's life-changing money. It was. It meant health insurance, retirement savings, Ethan's college fund. No more choosing between electricity and field trips. No more borrowing suits or selling plasma or lying awake calculating which bills could wait another week. It meant breathing room. It meant safety. It meant future. I need to pick up Ethan, Lucas said suddenly. I need to tell him. Emily checked her watch. School doesn't end for another hour. I don't care. I'm going early. Lucas grabbed his phone, his jacket, his keys. I have to tell my son that everything just changed. Derek grinned. Go. We'll celebrate properly this weekend. Dinner, the good stuff. On me. On us, Emily corrected. Lucas hugged them both again. Thank you. For everything. For believing when I couldn't. That's what family does, Emily said softly. Lucas ran down the hallway, down the stairs, out onto the street where the bus was pulling away from the stop. He waved frantically, and the driver, bless her, stopped and opened the doors. You okay, hun? She asked as Lucas climbed aboard, breathless. I'm perfect, Lucas gasped. Everything is perfect. She smiled like she understood something had shifted in the universe. Good for you, then. Lucas found a seat and pulled out his phone. The offer letter was still there, still real, still promising a future he'd almost given up on. He opened a new message to Olivia Sterling's email. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. What do you say to someone who just handed you your life back? Ms. Sterling, I've received and reviewed the offer. I accept with gratitude and enthusiasm. Thank you for taking a chance on me and my family. I won't let you down. Lucas Bennett. He hit send before he could overthink it. The response came before he'd even put his phone away. Mr. Bennett, I didn't take a chance. I made an investment. There's a difference. See you Monday. O.S. Lucas stared at those 2 letters. O.S. not regards Olivia Sterling, CEO. Just O.S. Something warm unfurled in his chest. Something dangerous and hopeful and entirely inappropriate for employee-employer communication. He pushed it down, locked it away. This was professional, had to stay professional. But he saved the email anyway. The elementary school parking lot was mostly empty when Lucas arrived 40 minutes early. He signed in at the office, and the secretary gave him a curious look. Everything okay, Mr. Bennett? Everything's great, Lucas said, and meant it. Can I wait for Ethan's class to be dismissed? Of course. They should be wrapping up soon. Lucas sat on the bench outside Ethan's classroom, listening to the muffled sounds of learning. A teacher's voice, children's laughter, the scratch of pencils on paper. Normal sounds, beautiful sounds. His phone buzzed, another email. The benefits package. Health insurance, dental, vision, 401k matching, paid time off, sick days, parental leave for future emergencies. Lucas read through it all with growing disbelief. These were things he'd forgotten were possible, safety nets he hadn't had since before Sarah died. The classroom door opened. Miss Patricia emerged, saw Lucas, and smiled. "Mr. Bennett, you're early today." "I have news," Lucas said. "Good news. For Ethan and me both." Understanding flickered in her expression. "I'm so glad. Ethan's been worried about you, you know. He tries not to show it, but he asks about your interviews, about whether you're sleeping enough. He's a caring child." Lucas's throat tightened. "He gets that from his mom. And his strength from his dad," Miss Patricia said gently. "Give me just a minute. I'll send him out." When Ethan appeared in the doorway, backpack dragging, he looked confused. "Dad, what are you doing here? Am I sick?" "No, buddy. Come here." Ethan approached cautiously. Lucas knelt down, taking his son's hands. "Remember my interview today?" Ethan nodded, eyes wide. "I got the job." For a heartbeat, Ethan just stared, processing. Then his face split into a grin that rivaled the sun. "Really? Really? Like for real, for real? Not maybe? Not we'll see? For real, for real. I start Monday. Which means," Lucas pulled Ethan close, "which means things are going to be different now. Better. We're going to be okay, Ethan. Actually, okay." Ethan threw his arms around Lucas's neck, squeezing tight. His voice came out muffled against Lucas's shoulder. "I knew you could do it. I told everyone you were going to get it. Did you? Tommy said his dad says jobs are hard to get. But I said my dad is really smart and works really hard, and someone would see that. And they did. They saw it." Lucas held his son in that elementary school hallway and let himself feel the full weight of relief, the full measure of gratitude, the overwhelming sense that maybe, finally, the universe was done testing him. "Can we get pizza now?" Ethan asked, pulling back. "The good kind?" Lucas laughed, real laughter that shook his shoulders and cleared his lungs. "Yeah, astronaut. We can get the good kind." They walked out of the school together, hand in hand, and for the first time in 3 years, Lucas Bennett didn't feel like he was one crisis away from collapse. He felt like a man who'd earned his place in the world. And somewhere across the city, in a glass-walled office overlooking the skyline, Olivia Sterling read his acceptance email one more time before filing it away. She didn't smile often, but she smiled then. The pizza was everything Ethan had dreamed of and more. They sat in a booth at Romano's, the place with the checkered tablecloths and the smell of garlic that hit you before you even opened the door, and Ethan attacked his stuffed crust slice with the focus of a surgeon. "This," he announced between bites, "is the best day ever." Lucas watched his son devour pizza like he'd been starving, and something in his chest loosened. Not just relief, something deeper, permission to stop surviving and start living. "Dad?" Ethan looked up, tomato sauce on his chin. "When you start your new job, does that mean we can stay here, in our apartment?" The question landed like a stone. Lucas had thought they were hiding it better. The worry, the uncertainty, the conversations he'd had late at night with the landlord about payment plans. "Yeah, buddy," Lucas said quietly. "We can stay. We're not going anywhere." Ethan's shoulders dropped, tension Lucas hadn't even noticed releasing. "Good. I like our apartment. And Derek and Emily are there. And I don't want to change schools again." Again. Because they'd already moved twice since Sarah died, chasing cheaper rent, running from bills they couldn't pay. "No more moving," Lucas promised. "We're stable now." Stable. The word tasted foreign on his tongue. They finished dinner in comfortable silence, Ethan swinging his legs under the booth and planning his field trip strategy with the intensity of a military operation. Lucas listened, making appropriate sounds of interest, but his mind was already racing ahead to Monday. His first day at Meridian Tech. His first day as someone who belonged. The weekend blurred past in a haze of preparation. Lucas bought new clothes, actual professional clothes that fit, not borrowed or thrift store finds. He set up direct deposit. He filled out insurance paperwork that made his eyes cross, but his heart sing because it meant Ethan could see a dentist regularly now, could get his vision checked, could have the kind of health care that didn't involve crossing fingers and hoping nothing broke. Saturday night, Emily insisted on a celebration dinner. She cooked lasagna, while Derek regaled Ethan with increasingly exaggerated stories about construction sites. Lucas sat back and watched his small family, the chosen kind, and felt grateful in a way that hurt. "Speech," Derek demanded, raising his beer. "New job, new life. Say something inspirational." Lucas raised his water glass. Thank you for believing I'd get here when I couldn't see it myself." "Sappy," Derek declared, but his eyes were suspiciously bright, but acceptable. Sunday was Ethan's field trip. Lucas packed his lunch with extra care, the good snacks, not the generic ones. Added a note on a napkin, "Have the best day, astronaut. Love, Dad." He walked Ethan to the school buses, watching his son bounce with excitement among his classmates. "Mr. Bennett?" Mrs. Patricia approached, clipboard in hand. "I'm so glad Ethan can join us today. He's been talking about it nonstop." "Thank you," Lucas said, "for everything, for understanding when things were tight." She smiled gently. "Every child deserves to learn. Every parent deserves support. I'm just glad things are looking up for you both." Lucas watched the bus pull away, Ethan's face pressed against the window, waving frantically. He waved back until the bus turned the corner and disappeared. Tomorrow. Tomorrow, his new life began. Monday morning arrived with the kind of nervous energy that makes coffee taste like lightning. Lucas dressed carefully. New shirt, new slacks, tie knotted perfectly after 6 attempts. He checked his reflection in the bathroom mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. Professional, confident, ready. Ethan appeared in the doorway, still in pajamas, clutching his astronaut. "You look fancy." "First day," Lucas said. "Gotta make a good impression." "You'll be great." Ethan yawned. "Can you make pancakes before you go?" Lucas checked his watch. He had time. Barely. "Chocolate chip?" "You're the best dad ever." They ate breakfast together in comfortable morning quiet, Ethan chattering about the museum trip while Lucas tried to calm his racing heart. At 7:15, Emily knocked on the door to take Ethan to school. They'd arranged this weeks ago, back when Lucas thought he'd still be freelancing and couldn't afford to miss morning client calls. "Go knock 'em dead," Emily said, hugging Lucas tight. "And text me updates. I want to know everything." "It's just a first day." "It's your first day as a man who knows his worth," she corrected. "That's not just anything." The bus ride downtown felt surreal. Lucas kept touching his new shirt collar, making sure everything was in place. Other commuters crowded around him, all heading to their jobs, their normal lives, their routines. Lucas was one of them now. Meridian Tech's lobby gleamed in morning sunlight. The same receptionist from his interviews looked up and smiled with genuine warmth. "Mr. Bennett, welcome aboard. Your badge is ready at security." His badge. With his name, his photo, his title. Strategic Operations Manager. Lucas stared at it like it might disappear if he blinked. "Conference room A, 8th floor," the receptionist continued. "New employee orientation starts at 9. Ms. Sterling wanted to see you first, though. 7th floor, corner office." Olivia wanted to see him. Lucas's stomach flipped. Professional, he reminded himself. This was professional. The elevator ride to the 7th floor gave him exactly 37 seconds to panic. What did she want? Had they made a mistake? Changed their minds? Realized they'd hired a fraud who'd somehow fooled everyone? The doors opened onto an executive floor that made the lobby look modest. Floor-to-ceiling windows, art that probably cost more than Lucas's car. Assistants moving with quiet efficiency. And at the end of a long corridor, a corner office with frosted glass and Olivia Sterling's name on a sleek metal placard. Her assistant, the same young woman from the interviews, looked up from her desk. "Mr. Bennett, she's expecting you. Go right in." Lucas knocked once, twice. "Come in." Olivia's office was somehow both impressive and intimate. Massive windows overlooked the city, but the desk was uncluttered. The shelves held books, not trophies. A small photo in a simple frame showed a younger Olivia with an older woman, her mother, maybe. Olivia herself stood at the window, silhouetted against morning light. She turned when Lucas entered, and something in her expression softened. "Mr. Bennett? Lucas?" She gestured to the chairs by a small table near the window, not the formal desk setup, but something more casual. "Please sit. Coffee?" "I'm fine, thank you." They sat. The morning sun caught the gold in Olivia's eyes, and Lucas had to consciously force himself to maintain professional distance. "I wanted to speak with you before orientation," Olivia began, "to set some expectations." Here it comes, Lucas thought. The catch. "This position is going to challenge you," she continued. "You'll be working directly with senior leadership on strategic initiatives. You'll have autonomy, but also accountability. Some people will question why we hired you. They'll see the gaps in your resume and wonder if you're qualified." Lucas's jaw tightened. "Are you having second thoughts?" "No?" The word was immediate, firm. "I'm telling you this so you're prepared. So you know that when someone questions your presence here, you remember that I don't make mistakes in hiring. I chose you because you've already proven yourself in ways most of these executives never had to. You've managed real crisis, real stakes, real consequences." She leaned forward slightly. "Don't let anyone make you feel like you don't belong here, Lucas. You earned this seat." The use of his first name, the intimacy of it, sent warmth through Lucas's chest. "Thank you," he managed. "I won't let you down." "I know." Olivia stood and Lucas followed. "One more thing. There will be talk. About why I personally interviewed you, about the field trip payment, about whether there's favoritism involved." Lucas's stomach dropped. "Is there something I should—" "Ignore it," Olivia said firmly. "I've been in this industry for 15 years. People talk. They'll invent narratives to explain what they don't understand. The truth is simple. You're qualified, you impressed the entire leadership team, and you got this job on merit. Everything else is noise." But the way she looked at him, steady, searching, something unspoken, hovering in the air between them, suggested the truth might be more complicated than that. Lucas left her office 10 minutes later, his head spinning and his heart racing in ways that had nothing to do with first-day nerves. Orientation was a blur of paperwork, system logins, and corporate policies delivered by an HR manager who spoke in acronyms. Lucas sat among 5 other new hires, all younger, all from prestigious companies, all looking completely comfortable in this world. He felt ancient and out of place until a woman next to him leaned over and whispered, "Is it just me? Or is this incredibly boring?" Lucas smiled. "It's not just you. Rachel Chen," she offered her hand, "starting in product development. You?" "Lucas Bennett, strategic operations." Her eyebrows rose. "Oh, you're the one Sterling personally recruited. There's been talk." Of course there had been. "Good talk or bad talk?" Lucas asked carefully. "Curious talk," Rachel said diplomatically. "Sterling doesn't usually involve herself in mid-level hiring, so people are wondering what makes you special." Lucas didn't have an answer that wouldn't sound either arrogant or self-deprecating, so he just shrugged. "Guess I'll have to prove I belong." "Haven't you already?" Rachel's smile was genuine. "You're here, aren't you?" The rest of the day was a whirlwind. Office assignment, a real office, with a door and a window, not a cubicle. Technology setup. Introductions to team members whose names Lucas would definitely forget by tomorrow. A lunch in the cafeteria that served food that actually tasted good and didn't cost a fortune. Lucas kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for someone to reveal this was all an elaborate joke. It never came. At 3 p.m., James Harding appeared at Lucas's office door. "Got a minute?" Lucas stood quickly. "Of course." James entered and closed the door behind him, a gesture that felt ominous. He was tall, silver-haired, with the kind of presence that commanded rooms without effort. "Relax," James said, reading Lucas's tension. "This isn't an interrogation. Just wanted to check in, see how you're settling." "Fine," Lucas said. "Good. It's a lot to absorb." "It is." James studied him with that same X-ray attention from the interview. "I'm going to be direct with you, Bennett. Olivia doesn't bring people in personally. She doesn't pay for field trips. She doesn't involve herself in hiring below executive level. The fact that she did all of that for you means she sees something." Lucas's throat went dry. I'm just trying to do good work. I believe that. James crossed his arms. But you should understand something about Olivia. She's brilliant, driven, and very, very alone. She's built walls that would make medieval castles jealous. For her to lower them even slightly to show personal interest in an employee's family situation, that's unprecedented. I don't understand what you're saying. I'm saying be careful, James said quietly. Olivia won't mix professional and personal. She's too disciplined for that. But if you're someone who matters to her, and I think you might be, then the boundaries get complicated, for both of you. Lucas felt heat creep up his neck. Nothing inappropriate has happened. I know, and I trust both of you to keep it that way. I'm just saying, be aware of the optics, of the complications, of what it means when someone like Olivia Sterling decides you're worth investing. James moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I think she made the right call hiring you. You've got something most of the people here lack. You've lived through real struggle. Don't lose that perspective. It's valuable. He left Lucas standing in his new office, heart pounding, questions multiplying like rabbits. The afternoon passed in a haze of system training and procedural documentation. By 5 p.m., Lucas's brain felt like mush. He packed up his new laptop, his own laptop, assigned to him, and headed for the elevators. The 7th floor button glowed softly. Olivia's floor. Lucas pressed it before he could think better of it. The executive level was quieter now, most assistants gone for the day. Only a few offices still showed lights, including the corner office at the end of the hall. Lucas walked toward it like a man drawn by gravity he couldn't resist. Olivia sat at her desk, the glow from her computer screen painting her face in blue light. She looked tired, more human than the polished CEO from this morning. Lucas knocked softly on the open door. She looked up, and surprise flickered across her features before smoothing into something warmer. Lucas, everything okay? I just wanted to say thank you, he said, hovering in the doorway. For earlier, for the pep talk. It helped. Olivia gestured to the chair across from her desk. How was your first day? Lucas sat. Overwhelming. Good. Terrifying. All of the above. That sounds about right. She closed her laptop, giving him her full attention. You'll find your rhythm. Give it time. James Harding stopped by my office, Lucas said carefully, watching her reaction. Something shuddered in Olivia's expression. Did he? He warned me about optics, about people talking, about... Lucas hesitated, then pushed forward. About you showing personal interest in an employee's situation. Olivia was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was measured, controlled. James means well. He's protective. Is he right? Are people talking? People always talk. Olivia stood, moving to the window. The city stretched below them, lights beginning to flicker on as dusk settled. The question is whether we give them something real to talk about, or whether we simply live our lives and let them invent narratives that suit them. Lucas joined her at the window, maintaining careful distance. I don't want to cause problems for you, for your reputation. You won't. She turned to face him, and the softness in her expression made Lucas's breath catch. I hired you because you're qualified, because you'll be an asset to this company. Everything else, the tie, the field trip, the personal attention, that's just me being a decent human being, something I should do more often, frankly. Still, Lucas said quietly, if there's even a hint of impropriety, there isn't. Olivia's voice was firm. And there won't be. We're both professionals. We both understand boundaries. But standing there, with the city lights reflecting in her eyes and the space between them feeling like a physical thing, Lucas wasn't sure either of them believed that completely. I should go, he said. Pick up Ethan. It's getting late. How was his field trip? The question, the genuine interest in it, made Lucas smile. He loved it. Came home with a bag full of space pamphlets and a detailed plan for a Mars colony. He wants to show you his drawings sometime. Olivia blinked, clearly caught off guard. He does? He knows you helped make the trip possible. He's 7. He doesn't understand corporate hierarchies or professional boundaries. He just knows a nice lady helped his dad and made sure he could go on his field trip. Something shifted in Olivia's expression. Vulnerability, quickly masked. I'd like that. Seeing his drawings. If it's appropriate. I think it is, Lucas said. You invested in my family. The least we can do is say thank you properly." Olivia nodded once, a small smile touching her lips. "Tell Ethan I look forward to it." Lucas left before the moment could stretch into something neither of them were ready to name. He took the elevator down, collected his things, and stepped out into the autumn evening, feeling like his entire world had tilted on its axis. He'd meant to keep things professional, meant to maintain distance, meant to focus solely on work. But Olivia Sterling wasn't just his boss. She was becoming something else entirely. The week unfolded with brutal intensity. Lucas dove into projects that challenged everything he thought he knew about strategic planning. He worked late, arrived early, absorbed information like a sponge drowning in ocean water. Richard Chen gave him a financial projection that looked like quantum physics and expected analysis by end of week. Maria Vasquez asked him to optimize a supply chain that spanned 3 continents. James Harding invited him to strategy sessions where Lucas felt like the only person who didn't speak fluent corporate warfare. But he learned, fast. He asked questions without shame, admitted ignorance without apologizing for it. And slowly, gradually, people stopped looking at him like an outsider and started treating him like a colleague, except for the whispers. Lucas heard them in the break room, caught them in sideways glances. Someone had started calling him Sterling's pet project behind his back. It stung more than he wanted to admit. On Thursday, Rachel found him eating lunch alone in his office, staring at spreadsheets that made his eyes cross. "You're hiding," she observed, inviting herself in. "I'm working. You're avoiding the cafeteria because someone made a comment about you and the CEO." She sat in his visitor's chair, unwrapping a sandwich. "Word travels fast here." Lucas set down his fork. "What are they saying?" "That Sterling has a soft spot for you, that you got special treatment, that maybe there's something going on." Rachel held up a hand before Lucas could protest. "I don't believe it, for what it's worth. I've seen Sterling in meetings. She doesn't do soft spots, and you've been busting your ass all week. Anyone with eyes can see that. But people are talking anyway." "Welcome to corporate life," Rachel said wryly. "Someone's always got an opinion about someone else's success. Ignore them, do your work, prove them wrong." It was good advice. Lucas tried to follow it, but Friday afternoon everything changed. Lucas was in a meeting with Maria's team presenting his supply chain analysis when his phone buzzed. He ignored it. Then it buzzed again, and again. He glanced down quickly, breaking every professional rule in the book. "Ethan's school. Please call immediately regarding Ethan Bennett." Lucas's blood turned to ice. "I'm sorry," he interrupted the meeting, already standing. "Family emergency, I have to go." He didn't wait for permission, didn't explain, just grabbed his phone and ran. He called the school from the elevator, heart hammering so hard he could barely breathe. "This is Lucas Bennett. You called about my son?" "Mr. Bennett, this is Principal Morris. Ethan is fine. He's not hurt. But he's had an incident with another student and we need you to come pick him up immediately." "What kind of incident?" A pause. "Physical altercation. Please come to the school as soon as possible." The line went dead. Lucas's mind raced. Ethan? His gentle, space-obsessed son who cried when ants got stepped on? In a fight? He caught a cab, couldn't wait for the bus, and made it to the school in 15 minutes that felt like hours. Principal Morris met him in the office. Ethan sat on a bench outside, tear-streaked and silent. "Mr. Bennett, thank you for coming so quickly." "What happened?" Morris gestured to her office. Behind closed doors, she explained in the measured tones of someone who had done this too many times. Ethan had punched Tommy Rodriguez, bloodied his nose, all because Tommy said something about Lucas. "What did he say?" Lucas demanded. "I don't think that's what did he say?" Morris sighed. "He said Ethan's dad was probably sleeping with his boss to keep his job. He said that's why your financial situation suddenly changed. He used language I won't repeat." White-hot rage flooded Lucas's veins. "And what are you doing about Tommy? Both boys are suspended for 3 days. Fighting is fighting, Mr. Bennett. We have a zero-tolerance policy." "My son was defending my honor, and you're punishing him for it?" "I understand you're upset." "You're damn right I'm upset." But Lucas rarely raised his voice, rarely let anger show. But this was too much. Some kid spreads vicious lies about me and my family, and my son gets punished for responding. Violence is never the answer. And what about words? What about bullying? What about protecting children from adult gossip they shouldn't even know about? Morris's expression hardened. The decision is final. Ethan is suspended Monday through Wednesday. All homework must be completed at home. We'll see him Thursday. Lucas left her office shaking with fury. Ethan looked up at him with red-rimmed eyes and a trembling chin. Am I in trouble? Lucas knelt down, cupping his son's face. No, buddy, you're not in trouble with me. But we need to talk about this. Come on, let's go home. They walked to the bus stop in silence. Ethan's hand clutched Lucas's like a lifeline. Once seated, surrounded by afternoon commuters, Ethan finally spoke. Tommy said bad things about you. I know. Really bad things. About you and the lady who helped you get your job. He said, Ethan's voice broke. He said you were doing gross stuff to keep the job. And I know that's not true because you're good at your job and you worked really hard, and it's not fair that people say mean things. Lucas pulled Ethan against his side, holding him tight. You're right. It's not fair. And I'm proud that you wanted to defend me. But hitting isn't the answer, Ethan, no matter how angry you are. I know. Tears slipped down Ethan's cheeks. But he wouldn't stop. He kept saying it, and everyone was laughing, and I wanted him to stop. I know, buddy, I know. When they got home, Lucas made hot chocolate while Ethan changed out of his school clothes. They sat on the couch together, the city growing dark outside their window, and Lucas tried to figure out how to explain adult cruelty to a 7-year-old. People make up stories, he said finally, when they don't understand something. They see someone succeed, and they try to find reasons that aren't fair, reasons that make them feel better about their own situations. Like Tommy's dad not being able to afford the field trip? Lucas blinked. What? Tommy's mad because his dad lost his job. He told me at recess last week. That's why he couldn't go on the field trip. So maybe he's mad that I got to go, and he didn't. But out of the mouths of babes. Maybe, Lucas said quietly, maybe that's exactly what's happening. His phone buzzed. A work email, then another, then a call from an unknown number. Lucas let it go to voicemail, but when he checked later, his stomach dropped. It was James Harding. Lucas, I heard what happened at Ethan's school. Call me when you can. This is important. How did James know already? Then it hit him. Tommy Rodriguez. Rachel Chen. Chen. Rachel's last name was Chen. Richard Chen was the CFO. Tommy's father had lost his job. Tommy Rodriguez, whose father had probably worked for Meridian Tech until recently, who probably heard office gossip at home, who probably repeated it at school without understanding the implications. Lucas's hand shook as he called James back. Tell me, he said without preamble. James sighed heavily. David Rodriguez was let go from the finance department 6 weeks ago. Poor performance. He's been bitter about it. Apparently, he's been spreading rumors about Olivia's hiring practices, about favoritism, about you specifically. And his kid heard it, and repeated it to your son. Lucas, I'm sorry. This is exactly what I was afraid of. The optics are the optics. Lucas's voice went dangerously quiet. My 7-year-old son got suspended for defending my honor against lies spread by a disgruntled former employee, and you're worried about optics? I'm worried about you, James said firmly. About Olivia. About what happens when this spreads beyond a schoolyard fight. What do you want me to do? Quit? Apologize for existing? No, I want you to be smart. Talk to Olivia. Figure out how to handle this together. Because if Rodriguez is spreading this story, others will too. And Meridian Tech doesn't weather scandals well, real or imagined. Lucas ended the call and immediately pulled up Olivia's number. His thumb hovered over the call button. Then Ethan appeared in the doorway, clutching his astronaut. Dad? Are you okay? Lucas put down the phone. Yeah, buddy, I'm okay. Are you going to lose your job because of what Tommy said? The fear in Ethan's voice broke Lucas's heart. No, he said with more confidence than he felt. I'm not going to lose my job. We're going to be fine. But as Ethan climbed onto the couch beside him, burrowing into Lucas's side, Lucas wasn't sure who he was trying to convince. His phone buzzed one more time. Olivia Sterling. I heard what happened. I'm sorry. Can we talk? Lucas stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed back. Lucas. Monday. After I get Ethan sorted, we need to figure out how to handle this. Olivia. We will. Together. Together. The word carried weight neither of them could afford to acknowledge. But as Lucas sat on his couch, holding his son, while the city lights flickered beyond their window, he knew that whatever came next would test everything they'd both built, and whether those walls James mentioned would hold or finally come crashing down. The weekend stretched before Lucas like a minefield he had to navigate blindfolded. Saturday morning, he woke to find Ethan already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with his Mars rover drawings spread out like battle plans. The kid hadn't slept well. Lucas had heard him tossing and turning, occasional sniffles that broke his heart. Hey, astronaut, Lucas said quietly, starting the coffee maker. You're up early. Ethan didn't look up from his drawing. Couldn't sleep. Keep thinking about Monday. Monday. When Lucas would have to face Olivia and figure out how to contain a scandal that hadn't even fully erupted yet. When they'd have to decide if his presence at Meridian Tech was worth the damage it might cause. Want to talk about it? Lucas asked. Ethan finally looked up, and the worry in his 7-year-old eyes was too old, too heavy. Are people going to keep saying mean things about you? Lucas sat down across from him, choosing honesty over comfort. Maybe. Probably. People talk, Ethan, especially when they don't understand something or when they're angry about their own lives. But it's not fair. No, it's not. So what do we do? Lucas reached across and tapped the Mars rover drawing. We do what astronauts do. We keep going. We don't let obstacles stop us. We adapt and overcome. Ethan considered this seriously, then nodded. Okay, adapt and overcome. That's my boy. The rest of Saturday passed in forced normalcy. Lucas made pancakes. They watched space documentaries. They built a new rocket ship out of cardboard boxes from the recycling bin. But underneath it all, tension hummed like a live wire. Lucas's phone stayed silent until evening when Derek knocked on the door with a six-pack and concern etched on his face. Emily's got Ethan, Derek announced, not waiting for an invitation before entering. Movie night at our place. You and me are going to talk. Lucas didn't argue. He followed Derek to the apartment, accepted a beer he didn't really want, and sank onto the couch with a sigh that came from somewhere deep in his bones. So, Derek said, settling into his armchair. James Harding called me. Lucas sat up straight. What? Why? Because apparently I'm your emergency contact at work, and he wanted to make sure you had support. Derek took a long pull from his beer. He told me what happened, about the kid at school, about the rumors. Of course he did. Don't be mad at him, he's trying to help. Derek leaned forward, elbows on knees. Lucas, level with me. Is there something going on between you and this CEO? The question landed like a punch. No, Lucas said immediately. Nothing inappropriate, nothing that crosses any lines. But something, Derek pressed. Because I've known you for 3 years, man. I've seen you shut down every woman who's shown interest. I've watched you build walls so high nobody could climb them. And suddenly you mention this Olivia Sterling, and your whole face changes. Lucas's throat went tight. She's my boss, Derek. That's not an answer. It's the only answer that matters. Lucas set down his beer, rubbing his face with both hands. She gave me a chance when nobody else would. She saw potential in me when my resume said otherwise. She's been nothing but professional and supportive. That's it. That's the whole story. And if it wasn't? Derek asked quietly. If you weren't boss and employee, if the timing was different? Lucas didn't answer, couldn't answer. Because the truth was complicated and dangerous and completely irrelevant to their current reality. That's what I thought, Derek said, not unkindly. Look, I'm not judging. But you need to be real with yourself about what you're feeling. Because feelings don't care about org charts or professional boundaries. And if this thing, whatever it is, becomes a problem, you need to know if it's worth fighting for. There's nothing to fight for, Lucas insisted. I need this job. Ethan needs this stability. Whatever I might feel or not feel doesn't matter compared to that. Derek studied him for a long moment. Just promise me you'll be careful. and honest, with her and with yourself. I promise. But as Lucas walked back to his apartment later that night, collecting a drowsy Ethan from Emily with whispered thanks, he wasn't sure it was a promise he could keep. Sunday brought rain and restlessness. Lucas tried to work on projects from home, but concentration eluded him. Ethan built Lego spaceships with unusual quiet, the suspension hanging over both of them like a storm cloud. At 2 p.m., Lucas's phone finally rang with the call he'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. Olivia Sterling. Lucas stepped into the bedroom for privacy before answering. Hello? Lucas? Her voice was softer than he'd ever heard it. I know we said Monday, but I couldn't wait. Can we meet? Somewhere private, not the office. Lucas's heart rate kicked up. When? Now, if possible. There's a coffee shop on 5th and Morrison. Small place, quiet. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She ended the call before Lucas could respond. He stared at his phone, mind racing. This was crossing lines. Meeting his boss on a Sunday at a coffee shop wasn't about work. Not really. This was personal territory neither of them should enter. But he was already grabbing his jacket. Derek's going to stay with you for a bit, Lucas told Ethan, already texting his neighbor. I need to run out for a meeting. On Sunday? On Sunday. Ethan looked worried, but didn't argue. Derek appeared moments later with a bag of M&Ms and a new Lego set, bless him, and Lucas escaped into the rain. The coffee shop was exactly as Olivia described. Small, tucked between a bookstore and a dry cleaner, the kind of place locals knew but tourists missed. Lucas spotted her immediately, sitting in a corner booth far from the windows, wearing jeans and a sweater that made her look younger, more vulnerable than the CEO armor she usually wore. She looked up when he entered, and relief flickered across her features. Lucas ordered coffee he didn't want and slid into the booth across from her. The space between them felt charged with everything they weren't saying. Thank you for coming, Olivia said quietly. Did I have a choice? Yes. Her eyes met his steadily. You always have a choice, Lucas. I need you to know that. Whatever we discuss here, whatever happens next, you're not obligated to anything. The sincerity in her voice made his chest tight. Okay. Olivia wrapped her hands around her coffee cup, and Lucas noticed they were shaking slightly. He'd never seen her anything less than perfectly composed. This version of her, uncertain, almost fragile, did dangerous things to his resolve. I spoke with legal on Friday, she began, about the Rodriguez situation, about the rumors. They're recommending we address it formally. What does that mean? It means a company-wide email clarifying our hiring practices, a statement that all personnel decisions are made based on merit and documented performance, a reminder about our gossip and harassment policies. Olivia's jaw tightened. David Rodriguez will receive a cease and desist letter regarding defamatory statements about company leadership. That'll make it worse, Lucas said. It'll confirm there's something to talk about, or it'll shut down the narrative before it spreads beyond one disgruntled former employee and his son. Olivia leaned forward. Lucas, I won't let you be collateral damage in someone else's bitterness. You earned your position. The work you've done in 2 weeks has already proven that. I'm not going to let lies taint what you've accomplished. And what about you? Lucas asked. Your reputation? If people think you're showing favoritism, let them think what they want. Her voice carried steel now. I've spent 15 years in this industry being called every name in the book. Too aggressive, too cold, too ambitious. I stopped caring about other people's opinions a long time ago. But you care about the company, about Meridian Tech's reputation. I do. Olivia's expression softened slightly. But I also care about doing the right thing. And protecting employees from harassment is the right thing. Lucas studied her face. The determination, the hint of exhaustion, the way she held herself like she was bracing for battle. Why are you really doing this? The truth. Olivia was quiet for a long moment. Rain drummed against the window, creating a curtain of sound that made their corner booth feel isolated from the rest of the world. Because I see myself in you, she said finally. Not the surface things, we come from different worlds, but the core, the refusal to quit even when everything says you should, the fight to prove you deserve a seat at tables people think you don't belong at, The walls you build to protect yourself while still trying to stay human inside them. Her eyes met his, and Lucas felt the air leave his lungs. I spent 20 years building those walls, Olivia continued quietly, making myself untouchable, convincing myself that strength meant isolation. And then you walked into my boardroom with a crooked tie and transparent desperation and more courage than most executives I know, and something in me recognized something in you. Olivia. Lucas's voice came out rough. I'm not saying this to make you uncomfortable, she interrupted. I'm saying it because you deserve honesty, because we're past the point of pretending this is purely professional. We're not crossing lines, Lucas. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But the lines exist because there's something worth protecting from. Lucas's heart hammered against his ribs. I can't lose this job. Ethan needs... You won't lose the job. Olivia's voice was firm. Not because of rumors. Not because of whatever this is between us. Not ever. As long as you continue to perform the way you have been. That's a promise. You can't promise that. I'm the CEO. I can promise exactly that. And if the board disagrees, if investors start asking questions, if this becomes a liability the company can't afford, Olivia's smile was small and fierce. Then they'll have to fire me first. And I don't lose fights, Lucas. Ever. The conviction in her voice made Lucas believe her, made him want to believe in impossible things. What do we do? He asked quietly. Going forward, how do we navigate this without... He gestured helplessly between them. Carefully, Olivia said. Honestly. We maintain professional boundaries at work. We make sure every decision is documented and justified. We give critics nothing concrete to attack, and we... She hesitated, vulnerability flickering across her features again. We're honest with each other about what this is and what it can't be. What is it? Lucas asked, even though he wasn't sure he wanted the answer. Olivia reached across the table, and for a moment Lucas thought she might take his hand. Instead, she laid her palm flat on the table between them, close enough to touch, but not touching. An offering and a boundary simultaneously. It's two people who understand each other in ways most people don't, she said softly. Who recognize the same scars, who respect the same struggles. What it can't be, at least not now, maybe not ever, is anything that compromises your career or my company or the professional relationship that has to come first. Lucas looked at her hand on the table, at the careful distance maintained, at the woman who'd given him back his future while denying herself the present. Slowly, deliberately, he placed his own hand on the table. Not touching hers, parallel, equal distance. Okay, he said, carefully and honestly. Carefully and honestly, Olivia echoed. They sat like that for another moment, two hands on a table that might as well have been a chasm, before Olivia pulled back and the professional mask slipped into place once more. The email goes out tomorrow, she said, voice businesslike again. HR will schedule a mandatory meeting about workplace conduct. You'll likely be asked about the situation. Answer honestly but briefly. You were hired on merit, the field trip was a gesture of goodwill, any suggestion otherwise is unfounded gossip. Got it. And Lucas? Olivia stood, gathering her coat. About Ethan. I'm sorry he got caught in this. No child should have to defend their parent against adult cruelty. He's resilient, Lucas said. Stronger than I give him credit for sometimes. He gets that from you. The compliment settled warm in Lucas's chest. They walked out together, standing under the coffee shop awning as rain continued to fall. Olivia's car, a sleek silver sedan that probably cost more than Lucas made in a year, was parked at the curb. I'll see you tomorrow, she said. Tomorrow. But neither of them moved. The rain created a wall of sound and water around them, and for just a heartbeat, Lucas let himself imagine a different world, one where he could close the distance between them, where professional boundaries didn't exist, where two damaged people could choose each other without consequence. Then Olivia smiled, sad and knowing, and the moment passed. She got in her car and drove away, leaving Lucas standing in the rain, wondering what the hell he was doing and whether carefully and honestly was enough to keep either of them safe from what they were becoming. Monday morning arrived with the weight of Judgment Day. Lucas dressed with extra care, tied his tie perfectly on the first try, and delivered Ethan to Derek and Emily with promises that everything would be fine. The suspension meant 3 days of makeshift childcare, 3 days of Ethan feeling punished for defending his father's honor. 3 days Lucas would spend proving he deserved to be at Meridian Tech. The office buzzed with unusual tension when Lucas arrived. People clustered in groups, whispering. Several heads turned when he walked past. Someone actually stopped talking mid-sentence. Lucas held his head high and went straight to his office. The company-wide email was in his inbox, time-stamped 7 a.m. Lucas read it twice, noting Olivia's careful language. No specific names, no acknowledgement of rumors, just a firm statement about merit-based hiring, zero tolerance for harassment, and expectations for professional conduct. At 9 a.m., his phone rang. James Harding. "Conference room C," James said without preamble. 10 minutes. Bring coffee. This is going to be a long conversation. The meeting included James, Maria Vasquez, and someone from HR Lucas had never met, a woman named Patricia Chen, who looked like she ate corporate lawyers for breakfast. "Mr. Bennett," Patricia began, her tone neutral but her eyes sharp. "We need to discuss the events of last Friday and their implications." Lucas straightened his spine. "I understand." For the next hour, they grilled him. His relationship with Olivia, the timeline of his hiring, the field trip payment, every interaction that could be misconstrued or questioned. Lucas answered honestly, factually, without embellishment or defensiveness. "Ms. Sterling fixed your tie during the interview?" Patricia's pen hovered over her notepad. "Yes. It was a kind gesture, nothing more." "She paid for your son's field trip personally?" "She did. $25. I've offered to reimburse her. She declined." "Have you had any personal contact with Ms. Sterling outside of work?" Lucas hesitated. Yesterday's coffee shop meeting flashed through his mind, but that was after the rumors started. That was damage control. "Yesterday we met briefly to discuss how to handle this situation," he said carefully. "Otherwise, no. Everything has been professional." Patricia made notes. Maria watched him like a hawk studying prey. James's expression was unreadable. "Mr. Bennett," Patricia said finally, "I'm going to be blunt. The optics here are problematic. A CEO, personally interviewing a mid-level candidate, financial assistance to that candidate's family, rapid promotion timeline. Any one of these things alone would be fine. Together they create a pattern that invites scrutiny." "I understand that," Lucas said, "but my work speaks for itself. I've completed every project assigned to me ahead of schedule and above expectations. My performance reviews, limited as they are after 2 weeks, have been excellent. I was hired because I'm qualified, not because of favoritism." "Can you prove that?" Maria asked sharply. "Can anyone prove why they were hired over other candidates?" Lucas countered. "I had a strong interview. The leadership team unanimously approved my hiring. Every decision has been documented. If you're asking me to prove a negative, to prove there wasn't inappropriate influence, that's an impossible standard." Patricia's lips twitched, almost a smile. "You're not wrong," James finally spoke. "Lucas, nobody here doubts your competence, but we need to make sure that if this escalates, if Rodriguez pushes his narrative or if media picks it up, we have a clean story, no gaps, no questions we can't answer." "I understand." "Good." Patricia closed her folder. "For the record, HR finds no evidence of policy violations. Your hiring was properly documented and approved through appropriate channels. Ms. Sterling's personal gesture regarding the field trip, while unusual, doesn't constitute inappropriate behavior. However," she fixed Lucas with a stern look, "going forward, any interaction between you and Ms. Sterling that could be perceived as personal, rather than professional, needs to be disclosed to HR immediately. Understand?" "Yes, ma'am." "And Mr. Bennett, keep your head down. Do excellent work. Don't give anyone ammunition. Time will prove your worth or it won't. But you can't control the narrative. You can only control your performance." Lucas left the meeting feeling like he'd survived a trial by fire. His hands shook slightly as he returned to his office, closed the door, and allowed himself one moment of pure anxiety before forcing it down and getting back to work. At lunch, Rachel appeared at his door again. "You survived," she observed. "Apparently." "For what it's worth, I told anyone who'd listen that the rumors are bullshit. You've been working your ass off. Anyone who says otherwise is jealous or ignorant. Lucas managed a smile. Thank you. That means more than you know. Also, Rachel dropped her voice, my uncle, Richard Chen, he thinks you're one of the smartest hires they've made in years. Said your financial analysis last week was better than some CFO-level work he's seen. So, there's that. The compliment hit harder than Lucas expected. Really? Really. So ignore the gossip. Focus on the work. And for the love of everything, stop eating lunch alone in your office. It makes you look guilty. She was right. Lucas forced himself to eat in the cafeteria, endure the stares and whispers, and act like everything was normal. By Wednesday, the gossip had shifted to other topics. Ethan's suspension ended. Life began to settle into a new rhythm, careful, measured, constantly aware of invisible lines. Lucas saw Olivia in meetings. They were scrupulously professional, no private conversations, no lingering glances, nothing that could be misconstrued. It was necessary. It was torture. Thursday afternoon, as Lucas was preparing to leave for the day, his office phone rang. Internal extension, Olivia's assistant. Mr. Bennett? Miss Sterling would like to see you. Are you available? Lucas's heart rate spiked. Of course. When? Now, if possible. Lucas grabbed his notebook and headed to the 7th floor, trying to ignore the churning in his gut. This was fine. This was normal. Bosses called employees to their offices all the time. Except Olivia's expression when he entered suggested this wasn't a normal summons. Close the door, she said quietly. Lucas obeyed, and Olivia gestured to the informal seating area by the window, the same place they'd sat during his first-day conversation. I have news, she said without preamble. David Rodriguez sent a letter to the board, alleging favoritism, demanding an investigation into my hiring practices, specifically regarding your position. Lucas's blood ran cold. What? The board is taking it seriously, not because they believe him, but because they have to be seen taking it seriously. There will be an external audit, HR practices, hiring documentation, everything will be reviewed. And if they won't find anything inappropriate because there wasn't anything inappropriate, Olivia said firmly. But Lucas, this is going to get uncomfortable. You'll be interviewed multiple times. Your performance will be scrutinized. People will pick apart every decision you've made. Lucas sank into the chair, mind racing. Maybe I should resign, make this go away. Absolutely not. Olivia's voice was sharp. That's exactly what Rodriguez wants, for you to be driven out, for me to be embarrassed. We don't give bullies what they want. But the company will be fine. I've weathered worse than a disgruntled former employee making noise. She leaned forward, intensity radiating from her. But I need to know you're in this, that you're willing to fight. Because it won't be easy, Lucas. They'll question your qualifications. They'll suggest you're a diversity hire, or a pity case, or... She stopped, jaw tight. They'll say worse things, and you'll have to stand there and take it without breaking. Lucas thought about Ethan, about the stability they'd finally found, about the future that had seemed so certain 2 weeks ago and now felt like sand slipping through his fingers. Then he thought about Olivia, about carefully and honestly, about two damaged people who'd found recognition in each other and refused to let cruelty define their worth. I'm in, he said. Whatever it takes. Relief flickered across Olivia's features. Okay, good. The audit starts Monday. Until then, we maintain absolute professionalism. No private meetings, no personal conversations, nothing that adds fuel to Rodriguez's narrative. Understood. And Lucas? Olivia's voice softened slightly. I'm sorry, you didn't sign up for this. Neither did you. No, but I can handle it. I've been handling this kind of thing my entire career. She stood, professional mask firmly in place. You should go. Pick up Ethan. Have a normal evening. This will all work out. Lucas stood too, but he didn't move toward the door. Do you really believe that? Yes. No hesitation. I believe you deserve to be here. I believe your work proves your worth, and I believe that truth wins eventually. It just takes longer than we'd like. Lucas wanted to believe her, wanted to trust that merit mattered more than gossip, that 2 weeks of excellent work would speak louder than malicious rumors. But as he left her office and headed home to his son, doubt crept in like fog. That night, after Ethan was asleep, Lucas sat at his kitchen table with his laptop in a growing sense of dread. He pulled up job listings, updated his resume, prepared for the possibility that this fight would cost more than he could afford to lose. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Unknown. This is Olivia. I know you're probably planning your exit strategy. Don't. We're going to win this. Together. Lucas stared at the message, at the word together, at the impossible promise from a woman who'd already given him more than he had any right to ask for. He typed back slowly. Lucas, how did you know? Olivia, because it's what I would do. Prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. But Lucas, you're not alone in this. Remember that. Lucas, carefully and honestly. Olivia, carefully and honestly. Lucas closed his laptop without saving the job listings. If Olivia Sterling believed they could win, then he'd believe it too. Even if it meant fighting a battle he'd never asked for. Even if it meant risking everything he'd worked so hard to build. Because some things were worth fighting for. And maybe, just maybe, he was finally one of them. The external audit began on Monday with all the warmth of a tax investigation and twice the paranoia. Lucas arrived at 7 a.m. to find his office already occupied by two auditors from Brennan and Associates, a woman named Margaret Brennan, who looked like she'd never smiled in her life, and a younger man named Colin Park, who took notes on everything, including how many times Lucas blinked. Mr. Bennett, Margaret said without preamble, we'll need access to all your work files, communications, and project documentation from your start date forward. We'll also be conducting interviews with everyone you've worked with. Of course, Lucas said, keeping his voice steady despite the anxiety clawing at his chest. Whatever you need. For 3 days, they dissected his work life with surgical precision, every email scrutinized, every project timeline questioned, every interaction with Olivia analyzed for signs of favoritism or inappropriate conduct. Lucas answered their questions honestly, provided documentation, explained his decision-making processes, and tried not to feel like a criminal defending himself against crimes he hadn't committed. On Wednesday afternoon, they interviewed Rachel Chen. Lucas knew because she stormed into his office immediately afterward, fury radiating from her like heat. They asked if I thought you were qualified, she hissed, closing his door harder than necessary. If I believed you'd earned your position, or if Sterling had pushed you through. I told them you're one of the smartest people in this department, and anyone who says otherwise is an idiot with an agenda. Rachel, you didn't have to. Yes, I did. Because this is garbage, Lucas. You've done nothing wrong. Sterling's done nothing wrong. And Rodriguez is a bitter asshole who can't accept that he got fired for legitimate reasons. Lucas managed a weak smile. Tell me how you really feel. I'm serious. Half this company knows Rodriguez was dead weight. He coasted for years on his father-in-law's connections, and when performance reviews finally caught up with him, he played victim. Now he's trying to take you down because it's easier than accepting his own failures. Do the auditors see it that way? Rachel hesitated. I don't know. They're professional, thorough, but they're also looking for something. You can feel it. That night, Lucas sat with Ethan while his son did homework at the kitchen table and tried to pretend everything was normal. But Ethan had inherited Sarah's ability to read him like a book. You're worried again, Ethan observed, not looking up from his math worksheet. Little bit, Lucas admitted. About the job stuff? Yeah. Ethan set down his pencil. Dad, if you have to leave your job, we'll be okay, right? The question broke Lucas's heart. Of course we will, buddy. We've survived worse. But you like this job, and you're good at it. Miss Patricia said my dad is really smart and works really hard. Ethan's lower lip trembled. It's not fair if they make you leave because of lies. Lucas pulled his son into a hug. Sometimes life isn't fair, astronaut. Sometimes people do mean things. But we don't quit. We keep fighting, just like astronauts facing impossible odds in space. Adapt and overcome? Adapt and overcome. But as Lucas tucked Ethan into bed that night, reading from a book about Mars exploration while his son's eyes grew heavy, he wondered how much more adapting and overcoming one person could handle before something broke. Thursday brought a development that changed everything. Lucas was in a strategy meeting with Maria's team when his phone buzzed with an urgent message from James Harding. He excused himself, heart pounding, and called back from the stairwell. Lucas, James said without preamble, get to conference room A, now. The auditors want to see you, and Olivia's been called in as well. What happened? Just get here. And Lucas, don't panic. This might actually be good news. Lucas practically ran to the conference room. He arrived to find Margaret Brennan and Colin Park seated on one side of the table, Olivia and James on the other. An empty chair waited for him between them. Olivia's face was carefully neutral, but Lucas caught the slight tension in her shoulders. James looked almost pleased. Mr. Bennett, Margaret said as Lucas sat, thank you for joining us. We've completed our preliminary review of the allegations made by David Rodriguez. Lucas's mouth went dry. And? Margaret opened a folder, the corners of her mouth tightening. In the course of our investigation, we discovered something interesting. Mr. Rodriguez has been in contact with several Meridian tech competitors over the past 6 weeks. Phone records indicate multiple calls to executives at Vertex Solutions and TechCore Industries. Olivia's eyebrows rose. You're saying he's been shopping information? We're saying the timing is suspicious, Colin interjected. Rodriguez's allegations became public shortly after he finalized what appears to be a consulting contract with Vertex Solutions, a competitor who, coincidentally, lost a major bid to Meridian Tech 2 months ago. Lucas's brain struggled to process this. You think Rodriguez was paid to create a scandal? We think Mr. Rodriguez has motivations beyond personal grievance, Margaret said carefully, which significantly undermines the credibility of his allegations. Combined with our review of your hiring documentation, which is impeccable, and interviews with your colleagues, which were unanimously positive, we find no evidence of favoritism, nepotism, or inappropriate conduct in your employment. The words took a moment to land. When they did, Lucas felt like he could breathe for the first time in a week. So I'm cleared? You were never formally accused of wrongdoing, Margaret corrected. But yes, our report will state that your hiring was merit-based, properly documented, and entirely appropriate. We'll also recommend that the company pursue legal action against Mr. Rodriguez for defamation and potential corporate espionage. Olivia's smile was small and fierce. Thank you, Ms. Brennan. We appreciate your thoroughness. After the auditors left, it was just Lucas, Olivia, and James in the conference room. The silence stretched for a heartbeat before James laughed, and clapped Lucas on the shoulder. Congratulations, James said. You just survived your first corporate witch hunt, and the witch turned out to be working for the competition. I can't believe, Lucas's voice cracked. This whole time he was just trying to damage the company? Damage me, specifically, Olivia said quietly. Rodriguez knew I personally recruited you. He thought attacking your hiring would undermine my judgment, create board scrutiny, maybe even force my resignation. Instead, he got caught committing corporate espionage, and his entire narrative collapsed. So what happens now? Lucas asked. Now? Olivia stood, and her expression carried something Lucas had never seen before. Relief, pure, unguarded relief. Now legal handles Rodriguez. HR sends a company-wide email clearing your name, and you get back to work proving why I was right to hire you in the first place. James excused himself, muttering something about updating the board, leaving Lucas and Olivia alone in the conference room. The glass walls made privacy an illusion, but for a moment they just looked at each other. Thank you, Lucas said quietly, for believing in me when everyone else was questioning. I didn't believe in you, Olivia corrected. I knew. There's a difference. She paused, then added softer, You would have done the same for me. Lucas realized she was right. He would have, without hesitation. Carefully and honestly, he asked. Olivia's smile was genuine this time. Carefully and honestly. The company-wide email went out Friday morning. Lucas read it 3 times, each word settling like a balm on wounds he hadn't fully acknowledged. Professional investigation concluded. Lucas Bennett's hiring fully vindicated. All allegations found to be baseless and potentially motivated by external interests. The matter was closed. His phone exploded with messages. Rachel sent a string of celebration emojis. Derek texted, "Congratulations," followed by demands for details. Even Richard Chen sent a brief note. "Never doubted you. Keep up the good work." But it was Emily's message that made Lucas's eyes sting. Emily, I'm so proud of you. You stood your ground and won. Ethan should know his dad is a fighter who doesn't quit. You're teaching him how to be strong. Lucas forwarded the message to Ethan with a simple note. We won, astronaut. The response was immediate. 3 rocket ship emojis, and I knew it. Friday afternoon, Olivia stopped by Lucas's office. This time, her visit felt different, lighter. The weight of scrutiny had lifted, leaving space for something that felt almost like friendship. Ethan's drawings, she said without preamble. I believe I was promised Mars colonies and rocket ships. Lucas blinked in surprise. You still want to see them? I do, if the invitation stands. It was crossing a line. Not a professional one, not anymore now that the audit had cleared them, but a personal one, inviting his boss into his life, into his home, into the space where he was just Lucas, not strategic operations manager. But maybe that was exactly what they both needed, to be seen as whole people, not just the roles they played. Sunday? Lucas offered. Afternoon? Nothing fancy, just coffee and a 7-year-old's enthusiasm for space exploration. Sunday works. After she left, Lucas sat at his desk and allowed himself a moment of pure, uncomplicated joy. They'd won. Not just cleared his name, but actually won. The truth had prevailed. Merit had mattered. The world had, for once, been fair. He texted Olivia before he could overthink it. Lucas, thank you. For everything. For seeing me when I was invisible. For fighting when I wanted to hide. For being someone worth fighting beside. The response came minutes later. Olivia, you were never invisible, Lucas, just waiting for someone to look properly. I'm glad it was me. Saturday was pure celebration. Derek and Emily hosted dinner, real dinner, not just pizza, and made toast to Lucas's vindication that embarrassed him and made him feel loved in equal measure. Ethan told everyone within earshot that his dad had won against the bad guys, which wasn't exactly accurate but captured the spirit of things. Sunday morning, Lucas cleaned the apartment with the kind of nervous energy usually reserved for first dates, which this absolutely was not. This was his boss coming to see his son's drawings, completely professional, totally normal. Why are you vacuuming? Ethan asked, watching Lucas attack the carpet with unusual vigor. We vacuumed yesterday. Just making sure everything's nice. For the lady from your work? Miss Sterling, yes. Ethan studied him with the unsettling perception of children. You like her? Lucas stopped vacuuming. She's my boss, buddy. So? You can like your boss. Ms. Patricia's my teacher, and I like her. That's different. Why? Because I'm 34 and terrified and haven't felt this way about anyone since your mother died, Lucas thought. Because Olivia Sterling sees me in ways I'd forgotten I could be seen. Because carefully and honestly is getting harder every day. It just is, he said instead. Olivia arrived at 2 p.m. exactly, punctual even in casual settings. She wore jeans and a simple blue sweater, her hair down for the first time Lucas had ever seen. She looked younger, softer, human in ways her CEO persona carefully concealed. Miss Sterling! Ethan bounded to the door before Lucas could answer the knock. I have so much to show you. Ethan, let her at least come inside first, Lucas said, trying not to laugh. Olivia smiled, genuinely, openly, in a way Lucas had never seen at the office. Hi, Ethan. You can call me Olivia if that's okay with your dad. Ethan looked to Lucas for permission. Lucas nodded, and Ethan's grin widened. Olivia, I like that name. Come see my Mars colony. For the next hour, Lucas watched Olivia Sterling, CEO of Meridian Tech, industry leader, the woman who'd survived corporate warfare that would destroy most people, sit on his living room floor and listen with complete attention while a 7-year-old explained rocket propulsion and oxygen generation with the confidence of a future astronaut. She asked questions, real questions that Ethan took seriously. She admired his drawings with genuine interest. She suggested engineering solutions to problems in his cardboard rocket ship design that made Ethan's eyes light up. And Lucas sat on the couch with coffee he'd forgotten to drink, watching 2 pieces of his life come together in ways he'd never expected and didn't quite know how to name. Your dad tells me you're very smart, Olivia said after Ethan finished explaining his plan for growing potatoes on Mars. Like scary smart, Ethan beamed. My dad's smart, too. He knows about business stuff and numbers and how to make things work when they're broken. He does, Olivia agreed. He's very good at fixing things that other people think are impossible. Like rocket ships? Like companies? Like strategies? Like problems that seem too big to solve. Her eyes met Lucas's across the room. Your dad doesn't quit. That's a rare quality. He says that's what astronauts do, Ethan said proudly. Adapt and overcome. Smart advice. Later, after Ethan had exhausted his current supply of Mars facts and been sent to his room to work on a new drawing, Lucas and Olivia sat at the small kitchen table with fresh coffee. The apartment was quiet except for the muffled sounds of the city beyond the windows. Thank you, Lucas said, for indulging him. You didn't have to spend an hour on the floor talking about space. I wanted to, Olivia said simply. He's remarkable, Lucas. You should be proud. I am, every day. Olivia looked around the small apartment. The pull-out couch that served as Lucas's bed, the kitchen that barely fit two people, the water stain on the ceiling that looked like Africa. Nothing fancy, nothing impressive, but home. I grew up in a house with 12 bedrooms, Olivia said quietly. Staff, gardens, every material thing a child could want. She wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. But I would have traded it all for what Ethan has. A parent who's present, who fights for him, who builds cardboard rocket ships and believes in Mars colonies. Lucas heard the loneliness beneath her words. Your parents weren't present? My father built empires. My mother hosted charity galas. I was an accessory, well-dressed, well-educated, well-behaved, but not particularly wanted. Olivia's smile was sad. I learned early that achievement was the only currency that mattered. So I achieved, relentlessly, until achievement was all I knew. Is that why you work so hard? Lucas asked gently. Still trying to prove your worth? Maybe. Olivia met his eyes. Or maybe I just forgot how to do anything else. Until recently. The weight of unspoken meaning hung between them. Olivia, Lucas began carefully. I need to say something, and I need you to hear it without... He stopped, gathering courage. What happened with the audit, with Rodriguez, it clarified something for me. I'm grateful for this job, for the stability, for the future it gives Ethan and me, but I'm also... He faltered. The words felt too big, too dangerous. You're also what? Olivia prompted softly. I'm grateful for you, Lucas finished, for seeing me as more than my resume, for believing I had worth when I'd almost forgotten, for being someone who understands what it means to fight alone and keep fighting anyway. Olivia set down her coffee cup with deliberate care. Lucas, I'm not asking for anything, he interrupted. I know the complications, the boundaries, the very good reasons why we have to maintain professional distance. I just needed you to know that you matter, to me, as more than a boss, as a person who changed my life in ways that have nothing to do with employment. Silence stretched between them, weighted with everything they weren't saying, everything they couldn't say. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Then Olivia reached across the table and took Lucas's hand, actually took it, skin to skin, warm and real and impossibly significant. You matter to me too, she said quietly, in ways I didn't expect and don't entirely know how to navigate. You walked into my boardroom and reminded me what it felt like to be human, to care about someone beyond professional metrics, to want something more than the next achievement. Lucas's heart hammered. What do we do with that? I don't know. Olivia's thumb traced small circles on the back of his hand. The professional complications are real. The power dynamics exist even when we don't want them to. But Lucas, I'm tired of being alone. I'm tired of building walls and calling it strength. And when I'm with you, I don't feel alone. Neither do I, Lucas admitted. They sat like that, hands joined across a kitchen table in a modest apartment, while the city moved around them and the future hung uncertain. This wasn't a romance. Not yet. Maybe not for a long time. The complexities were too great, the stakes too high, the professional relationship too important to risk. But it was possibility. It was two people choosing to be seen, to be vulnerable, to admit that strength didn't require isolation. Dad, Ethan's voice called from the bedroom. Can Olivia see my new drawing? I made it about Earth this time. Olivia smiled and gently released Lucas's hand. Duty calls. It always does. For now, Olivia said, standing. But maybe not always. Maybe eventually we figure out how to balance duty with... She gestured between them. Whatever this becomes. Carefully and honestly? Lucas asked. Carefully and honestly, Olivia confirmed. No rushing, no pressure, just two people who understand each other learning what that means. Lucas stood too, and for a moment they were close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her hazel eyes, could feel the warmth of her presence, could imagine closing the distance and finding out what her lips tasted like. But he didn't. Not because he didn't want to, but because some things were worth waiting for, worth doing right. Dad! Come in, astronaut, Lucas called back, then softer to Olivia. Welcome to my chaos. I like your chaos, Olivia said. It's honest, real, everything my life usually isn't. They spent another hour looking at Ethan's drawings, discussing Earth's atmosphere and climate change with the seriousness it deserved. Olivia stayed for dinner, spaghetti with jarred sauce because Lucas's cooking skills were limited, and listened to Ethan's running commentary about everything from playground politics to his theory that aliens definitely existed and were probably friendly. When she finally left, Ethan gave her an enthusiastic hug that caught her off guard. Lucas saw the surprise on her face, followed by something that looked like wonder, as she hugged his son back. Thank you for showing me your drawings, Olivia said seriously. You're going to do amazing things someday, Ethan. So are you, Ethan declared. My dad says you're already doing amazing things. He says you're really smart and helped lots of companies. Your dad is very kind. But he's not being kind. He's being honest. My dad doesn't lie. Olivia's eyes met Lucas's over Ethan's head. No, I don't think he does. At the door just before leaving, Olivia turned back to Lucas. This was nice. Real. Thank you for letting me into this part of your life. Thank you for wanting in, Lucas said. I'll see you tomorrow? At work? At work. The distinction mattered. Work Lucas and home Lucas were different people, and they had to be. But now Olivia knew both versions, had seen the whole person, not just the professional mask. That changed things. Not immediately, not dramatically, but fundamentally. Monday morning, Lucas walked into Meridian Tech with his head high and his confidence genuine. The whispers had stopped. The stares had faded. People treated him like what he was, a competent professional who'd earned his place. He threw himself into work with renewed focus, completed projects that exceeded expectations, contributed ideas in strategy meetings that made Richard Chen nod approvingly and Maria Vasquez actually smile. Built relationships with colleagues based on mutual respect rather than suspicious speculation. 2 weeks after the audit cleared him, James Harding stopped by his office. Got a minute? Lucas gestured to the visitor's chair. Of course. James sat, studying Lucas with that same assessing look from the first interview. You've done well. Better than well, actually. The board noticed your work on the supply chain optimization. Saved the company about $2 million in projected costs. Lucas tried not to look shocked. I was just doing my job. Your job is now getting a significant expansion. We're creating a new position, Director of Strategic Innovation. Reports directly to executive leadership, substantial raise, more autonomy, and I'd like you to consider it. The words took a moment to process. Director level? I've been here less than 2 months, and you've proven yourself more in that time than some directors do in years. James leaned forward. I'm not going to lie. There will be questions. Some people will say you're being promoted too fast, that Sterling's influence is at play. But your work speaks for itself, Lucas, and more importantly, Olivia's recused herself from the decision. This recommendation comes from me, Richard, and Maria. We all agree you've earned it. Lucas's throat tightened. I don't know what to say. Say yes, take the weekend to think about it. But Lucas, you belong here, at this level. Stop questioning whether you deserve the opportunities you've earned. After James left, Lucas sat in his office and let the magnitude of it hit him. 2 months ago, he'd been a struggling freelancer who couldn't afford his son's field trip. Now he was being offered a director-level position at a major tech company. Not because of favoritism, not because of who he knew, because of the work he'd done, the value he'd created, the potential leadership recognized. He pulled out his phone and texted Olivia before he could overthink it. Lucas, James just offered me the Director of Strategic Innovation position. Olivia, I heard. I recused myself from the decision to avoid any appearance of impropriety. But for the record, you've earned it 10 times over. What did you tell him? Lucas, that I'd think about it, but I already know my answer. Olivia, and? Lucas, yes. I'm saying yes to the future, to believing I deserve good things, to all of it. Olivia, I'm proud of you. 3 words, simple, honest, and they meant everything. Lucas accepted the position on Friday. The announcement went out company-wide, and this time the responses were congratulatory, genuine. Rachel sent champagne emojis and demands for celebration drinks. Derek called whooping with joy. Emily cried happy tears on the phone. And Ethan, when Lucas told him over pizza that night, asked the most important question. Does this mean we're really okay now? Like, forever okay? Lucas pulled his son close. Yeah, astronaut. We're really okay. We made it. We adapted and overcame. We adapted and overcame. 3 months later, on a Friday evening in February, Lucas stood in his new office, a real office with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view that rivaled Olivia's, and reviewed the strategic plan he'd present to the board on Monday. His phone buzzed. A text from Olivia. Olivia, still here? Lucas, finishing Monday's prep. You? Olivia, same. Coffee, my office? Lucas smiled and grabbed his laptop. These late Friday coffee sessions had become routine over the past months. Technically work-related, practically something more. He found Olivia at her window, silhouetted against the city lights. She turned when he entered, and her professional mask softened into something warmer. How's the presentation? She asked. Solid. Probably needs another pass, but solid. Perfectionist. Learned from the best. They sat in the informal seating area, reviewing his slides and debating strategy with the easy back and forth they'd developed. Professional, productive. But underneath it all, an undercurrent of something neither of them had fully acknowledged. After the work discussion wound down, they sat in comfortable silence, drinking coffee and watching the city below. Lucas, Olivia said quietly, can I ask you something personal? Always. Are you happy, really happy? Not just professionally, but, she gestured vaguely, in life. Lucas considered the question seriously. I am. Happier than I've been since Sarah died. Ethan's thriving. We have stability. I have work that challenges me and colleagues I respect. I have... He paused, meeting her eyes. I have a friend who understands me in ways I didn't think were possible anymore. Olivia's smile was gentle. Just a friend? For now, Lucas said honestly. Maybe always. The professional complications are real, Olivia. I'm a director now, but you're still the CEO. The power dynamics exist even when we wish they didn't. They do, Olivia agreed, but they won't always. In a year, maybe 2. If you continue performing the way you have been, you'll be executive level. Up here. The dynamic shifts. Are you saying we should wait? I'm saying I'm willing to, Olivia said. For something real. For someone who sees me as a person, not a position. Who builds cardboard rocket ships and fights for his son and doesn't quit even when everything says he should. She set down her coffee cup. I've spent 15 years alone, Lucas. I can wait a little longer for something that matters. Lucas's heart swelled with something too big to name. And if I said I'm willing to wait too, to do this right, to build something that isn't complicated by professional hierarchies, then I'd say you're exactly the person I thought you were. Olivia reached across and took his hand, a gesture that had become familiar over these months. Carefully and honestly, Lucas, we build this slowly, properly, until the time is right. And until then, we're colleagues who respect each other, friends who support each other, and 2 people who know that good things are worth waiting for. Lucas squeezed her hand gently. I can work with that. They sat like that as the city lights flickered and the office emptied around them. 2 people who'd found each other in the wreckage of their separate struggles and chose patience over impulse, partnership over passion, building a foundation instead of rushing to the finish. Because some things couldn't be rushed, some things had to be earned, and some things, the best things, were worth every moment of waiting. Lucas Bennett had learned that lesson well. He'd waded through grief and poverty and uncertainty. He'd fought when everything said to quit. He'd believed in himself when belief seemed foolish. And now, looking at Olivia Sterling's profile against the city lights, watching her smile with genuine warmth, feeling the solid weight of her hand in his, he knew he'd wait as long as it took. Because he was done surviving. He was finally, truly living. And the future, uncertain, complicated, but infinitely promising, stretched before him like an unexplored frontier. Just like Mars. Just like the dreams his son built from cardboard and hope. Just like the life he'd almost given up on, but fought for anyway. The elevator ride down felt different than all the ones before. Lucas wasn't running toward survival or away from failure. He was walking into a future he'd earned, a life he'd built, a tomorrow that did not terrify him. He pulled out his phone and sent one final text. Lucas, thank you for seeing me, for believing, for waiting. Olivia, thank you for being worth waiting for. Lucas smiled and stepped out into the February night. The air was cold but clean, carrying the promise of spring just weeks away. He'd pick up Ethan from Emily's, go home to their small apartment that was finally blessedly stable, and plan for a weekend of cardboard engineering and space documentaries. Normal things. Beautiful things. Things that mattered. And someday, when the time was right, when the complications resolved, when patience became permission, there would be more. But for now, this was enough. More than enough. It was everything.